What an absolute magnificent song. Reminds me of St. Francis walking on his path, feeling the freedom of spirit walking right beside him, and the freedom and the comfort that comes forth when we are in tune and when we are able to walk with spirit in our lives. Today's talk is titled Awakening Your Soul Freedom. And of course, it's an appropriate topic because we are in our 4th of July holiday weekend, where the country and all of us, our friends and family, celebrate this idea of freedom and recognizing that in each one of us, in our value tree, in our lives. And as we project that energy of freedom outward in our lives, to also remember, as this quote indicates, who looks outside dreams, and who looks inside awakens. That was by Carl Jung. And it reminded me about really what we're doing on the outside level of our lives is a projection, and if it is in harmony with our inside or our desire for the inside, that freedom on a spiritual level inside of us has to be also attained. And when we sit and we contemplate that, what does really freedom mean? I have kind of in few instances really looked at my own spiritual practice in that pursuit of freedom. I've always kind of interpreted it as full awakening. And yet, the driver for us as human beings, or I should say maybe as spiritual beings having a human experience, the driver of that, the initial start of that, is to pursue that feeling inside of us where we awaken into a sense of freedom and release from some of the bonds that we can feel. Because the human experience has, as we all know, limitations for ourselves. When we engage in our lives, there's all kinds of tests and experience that come up that make us come to that point within us where we are trying to solve them in the best that we know how, so that we can feel again that sense of freedom, that sense of connection. Sometimes in our lives, we can kind of roll along, and then something happens that can trigger us, like a real life-changing experience And it can cause things in ourselves, like the questioning is, for instance, question our self-worth, or we can feel a deep loneliness, or there's a sense of mistrust in our lives. Things and experiences that trigger our senses that say, hey, this thing has to be addressed. We have to find a way to move through it, to recalibrate ourselves, to find our equilibrium inside ourselves. That longing of that freedom of feeling like this burden is not anymore a burden, but that we fully understand the thing that is in front of us. And it triggers something where we need to have a self check-in in our hearts. We need to feel our hearts as thriving in our lives, as free in our lives. And these experiences can dampen that, and it can feel compressed or unable to feel free and expanding. And that's really our true nature, to feel that expansion, to feel that we are judgeless, and that all of these things, these trigger points, really have no more, we can engage in them in such a way that we don't feel triggered by them anymore. That freedom of that is what I'm talking about. And so the thing that I've been thinking about there is that when I do like a self check-in in myself, and close my eyes and go deep within, and I wish to feel my heart, my spiritual heart, and to feel how open it is, and knowing that this drive is there also within that wants it to feel ever expanding, ever new joy, and connected with that energy of ever new joy and ever expanding. And I relate that feeling of wanting that as being able to take a full breath inside, a full breath, a full measure of love inside. If you can imagine your heart pulsating and being able to extend that pulsating as your breath expands, to then also feel like your heart is expanding, and that it's like a muscle that as you use it, as you stretch it, it becomes larger and larger. And in that sensation, you may feel a sense of relaxedness, of letting go a little bit of the constraints that we've, without deliberately doing it, our subconsciousness has pressed into that heart and that love that we can expand outward. So in a way, I'm asking to gauge my heart health. And I'm asking all of you to take a look and feel inside your heart and sense that that gauge of where your hearts are at. And is there room to fill that ever increasing, and to have an internal look to see what might be limiting you, what might be holding you back. And only the individual can truly take that inside of themselves and really gauge that and test that within themselves. Because if we see our limitations, we know that part of being a spiritual athlete, that draw of being free, has made us start our journey here. And these limitations are there, but they can be consciously looked at and healed and released, and our heart consciously can grow, and through our meditations we can increase that flow inside of ourselves. Upon reflecting about freedom, I can see that it is connected to an effort and a movement inside of ourselves. And that means that freedom is somewhat bound to this existence of duality that we all find ourselves in. When we strive for freedom, for a greater awareness, a sense of release, of not being shackled to something, it's duality at play, because there's this desire to go one way and the desire to not be connected to the other. And in our Sunburst teachings, we talk about our virtues, our 12 virtues that we have in characteristical form, kind of overlaid on the 12 months of the year, pursuant to the zodiac signs that are there. And we find ourselves currently in the zodiac sign of Cancer, and the virtue that we have planted there is the virtue of perseverance, the virtue of pushing through and getting to that goal. And as last Sunday David was talking about how the opposite on the zodiac wheel of Cancer, we find ourselves with the virtue of temperance. And I just want to make the analogy that as we find ourselves with these bumps in the road, so to speak, these things that are limitations that are causing us concern and, producing a sense of potentially of loneliness or self-worth or mistrust, and as we address them, as we face them in perseverance, we build ourselves a temperate heart. It's like the metal that becomes stronger and more pliable because of getting worked again and again and again, and reheated and softened and banged again, and so it becomes strong but yet pliable and movable without breaking. And that's a little bit how I see our heart and our ability to confront and to be aware of the things, of these limitations in ourselves that we want to release ultimately and be free from them. The other thing that how I see this riddle of freedom is the sense that it is really truly bound just in our awareness of duality. It is a sensation that comes with movement, and movement comes in our bubble of creation as duality. We sense the feeling of being separate of something by recognizing the apartness of the two things. But when we have that perception of creation being a bubble and surrounded by the omnipresence of spirit, then freedom, or the lack of, is just a part of the whole of creation. It's just one of the many facets that we encounter in creation. And so when we take that step back and letting ourselves feel that it is okay because it is a part of the whole, and the whole is what we embrace, then we no longer come to that place in ourselves where we feel separate from it, but we are okay with it. We feel like we can connect and engage with it. A new sense of freedom is encoded in that riddle of feeling that omnipresence. So as we go into meditation today, as we pull ourselves inward, as we find our seat, and we pull our consciousness slowly inward, and we reflect on that sense of freedom, and we engage with our heart, and we practice through meditation, through our movement of life force within ourselves, that sense of expanding our heart to take that full breath of love that is so joyously given by Spirit, and to practice that and when we encounter the things that hold us back inside, those feelings of limitations, maybe find a way to see them with compassion, to see them in love, and to see truly how little power they have over us as we embrace them in our whole, in our wholeness. as we expand our hearts in our meditations. And we find that peace. That peace that comes with that practice. How big can we make our love in our hearts in this moment? And what can it all embrace? Duality presents us with limitations, but it also presents us with the antidote for limitations. The opposite also exists in duality. And in our spiritual practice, we must not fear the things that arise that create our triggers that kick in. Because in that love that we can generate in our hearts, we can observe the thing that wishes to be observed. And we can empower ourselves with the antidote. Loneliness can be overcome by remembering that Spirit is everywhere. In every moment of every day, we can feel both. And it's okay. As you learn to share yourself with Spirit, Spirit is drawn to you, and Spirit creates that sense of connection, just like St. Francis had. Feeling of self-worth. Spirit sees us all without limitation. So why should you? We are here to embrace our lives for Spirit, to do good deeds here in our physical body. And we have the privilege and the honor. And Spirit is right there with us, experiencing all of our victories and our struggles and our challenges. But more importantly, that feeling of being worthy to attempt it, to flex those muscles inside of us. That trigger of mistrust. All life experiences come from Spirit And trust can grow more stable inside when you love the imperfections of the experience, to stand neutral and to stand with love as all the experiences of life comes toward you, and to put your trust in spirit, and that life has made a commitment to show you in this life what is needed to grow, and to release the right and wrong that comes in the experience. As truly as we look upon our lives, our past, time makes the heart grow fonder. And with this contemplation, the last thing I'd like to say is that we are able to heal the wounds in ourselves and on the planet. When we perfect ourselves, when we strive for that point of release, then we also are able to get to the point where we are able to heal ourselves, and in so doing, we create space for healing to take upon all humankind, all of our friends, all of our loved ones. Our movement toward releasing and accepting our triggers, our limitations, and to be able to allow them to be in our meditations, imbued by our love, releases them into the whole and releases that burden and releases that fine tincture of heal and wellness inside of us. So the desire for freedom is the catalyst to enact us to walk our path, our spiritual path, and to be ready with an open heart to embrace all the challenges. I am that I am. I stand with you, my heart open, my will at the ready. May freedom flow upon us and upon the land. Amen.
Marvel not when I say you must be born Mother divine, born in the arms of the circling wind, born in the arms of the circling wind. Marvel not when I say you must be born again, born of the breath and the fire, child of the holy desire, come forth within, come forth within, come forth within, come forth within. Deep in the silence shines the sacred light, watching and waiting for every soul. Oh, my child, stand in the sacred light. Let it guide your way home. Won't you guide my way home? Marvel not when I say you must be born again, born of the Spirit and the water, child of the Mother and the Father divine, born in the arms of the circling wind, born in the arms of the circling wind, free in the light again, my love, free in the light again. I am that I am, my love, free again.